Hey folks, welcome back to another Jurassic World Evolution 3 Let's Play episode. This is going to be a 52-minute bumper episode, so hold on to your butts and get ready. As you can see, we are heading across to Clark County for the first time. This is the third map that you unlock in Jurassic World Evolution 3 story mode, so we are going to jump straight into it. You can see we're turning a ramshackle flying reptile zoo into a well-maintained moneymaker. So we are going to be building aviaries. And straight off the bat, you get a good look at the map itself. Something I haven't touched on thus far is the wonderful little loading screen with the raptor and the goat in the bottom right-hand corner. It has just frozen on my screen, but I absolutely love that. I think it's such a cool addition from Frontier. So let's load into Clark County. Let's take a closer look at this brand new map. And you'll see it's a little bit different than anywhere else we've been beforehand. And this one, I really got immersed in it. I didn't realize that 50 minutes had passed. So hopefully you'll see that from the gameplay.
Las Vegas. In Spanish, the Meadows. Huh. It brings to mind peaceful, rolling pastures and verdant land. But what we get are greedy opportunists rolling the dice on displaying prehistoric animals in sorely lacking enclosures. But then, aren't you also taking a gamble? Will you be able to get this site not just functional, but ethical? Roll up, place your bets, and good luck. You know, if you believe in that sort of thing.
Man, I've said it, I love
When
Malcolm.
you said we were going to Vegas, I was expecting glitz, glamour, and maybe a night on the town, huh? But, that'll teach me for being optimistic. What was this place again?
I believe that the original owner called it a prehistoric playland, or some such. The new owner, our client, wants us to take better care of these animals.
And I bet they're expecting some impressive profits given the Vegas-adjacent real estate. Oh, I have a good feeling about this.
So ignore the fact I'm building a response facility. I realised very quickly that I've actually just doubled up something that's already here. You can see me look at it and going, oh, I meant to build a maintenance facility. So we will fix that nice and quickly.
I brought in a freelance crisis manager. She was a big name at Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, until they went under, catastrophically. But I'm sure that had nothing to do with you, Lily. Nothing at all,
Thank you, Cabot. And hello, everyone. Now, our most pressing task is to get these animals recontained, which means repairing that aviary. Unless we want those high flyers to escape to the bright lights of the city, of course.
So it's interesting seeing Lily Hallford back in this game because I think, and you can correct me below if I'm wrong, but I believe she mainly appeared in the Chaos Theory mode in Jurassic World Evolution 2. I know that she was kind of one of the main park workers in, I think, possibly Return to Jurassic Park in Jurassic World Evolution 1, where she was the person working with Hammond to build the park. And then I think she appeared across different eras of the game in Jurassic World Evolution 2. So it's cool having her back here. Again, I think Frontier have done a really good job of obviously building out Dr. Dewar, you've got Lambert, you've got Isaac Clement, you've got obviously Cabot Finch, and now Lily Halford. You have this whole assortment of characters who are already present in the evolution lore. They're quite established across these games, and I think fans who have played multiple games will have a relationship to some extent with these characters. And then you can see the new Doctor, obviously the introduction of Kira. They're building out their roster further. Now this shows you how long it's been since I played an evolution game. I forgot that ranger stations just get assigned to the aviary. They don't get assigned to the actual ranger station when it comes to an aviary. So I had to pick that up quite quickly and remember that actually there is a different way of doing this than I remember. So again, the main thing here, tranquilizing these pteranodons. I really love how in Evolution we get a sense of kind of different parks being constructed and failing. That's something you're going to see a little bit later on, is actually not everybody is building a Jurassic
I
World.
should say, it's especially good to see you again, Kira.
You two know each other, huh?
Lily was a mentor for me. She gave me my first opportunities in paleocuration.
And you walked away from those opportunities with a copy of my contacts database in your pocket. She was a cunning young raptor even then.
Yes, well, I learned from the best. But let's just focus on recontaining the escaped flying reptiles.
I like the tension there. I wonder if they're going to develop that further later in the game. It's an interesting one to see. It's got potential to be an interesting story point going forward. I have to admit, I do think the story mode, again, it is more about getting an introduction to the mechanics of the game, but what I do really enjoy here is it does give us a sense of a broader world, a world where different people have tried to find ways to leverage the presence of dinosaurs, find ways to exploit them, and in the case of this park that is in Las Vegas, it hasn't worked. So I think that's quite a cool thing to see here. So again, at this point, you're in the park environment already. You know what you need to do. This is very much just about getting this park up and running. So it does mean getting rid of some of these abandoned buildings that are here. But Frontier, if you're listening, please put these buildings as blueprints on the workshop. That would be so cool to be able to play some of the abandoned buildings from this map. I think a lot of people with the workshop tools especially are going to be looking at doing parks that are like partially constructed, or parks that are maybe abandoned. You know, Isla Sorna after the events of Hurricane Katrina comes to mind. So I think that kind of stuff would be really, really cool to see. And if you can kick us off by giving us a few abandoned buildings in the workshop, that would be really awesome. And I think that's something more broadly that I'm really curious to see with this game post-launch, is obviously previously we've always had kind of DLC packs that have been released, and I think we will see building and blueprint DLC packs for Jurassic World Evolution 3. It kind of seems like a no-brainer to me, but my big question is whether things like blueprints are going to be kept for those packs, or if it might be a case of Frontier updating things a lot more as they go through, because we know the staff play the games, right? We know the staff do live streams and things. So it would be so cool if anytime there's a live stream, maybe blueprints created during that live stream, for example, end up on the workshop. I just think there's a lot of potential here to really broaden the life cycle of this game compared to what we've had previously, so that's quite exciting. If it's not obvious, I've been playing with the blueprint system in my free time around this campaign gameplay, so that's kind of really why I wanted to touch on that. It's not really something we've touched on in the campaign yet, but it is a fun thing to play with. So you can see I'm just getting a few of the key pieces of infrastructure in place whilst everything else is going on. Eventually the pteranodons will be contained, the last one's getting dropped in now, and then we'll move on to our next objective. So you can see there's our last pteranodon dropped into the aviary, so we should be getting a tick any moment.
Looking good. But if this place is gonna hit the jackpot, we'll need these animals to be visible to our guests. And we should make it clear that the park's under new management with some stylish scenery, too.
Oh, yeah. What's a sideshow without the show, after all?
So interestingly, you can see here I'm just tidying up this central square area, but both that square and the individual buildings are one piece, so you can delete them in one go, which means they have been created as groups, and groups can be made into blueprints. So I think throughout the campaign, there's going to be a lot of moments like this where I really feel like Frontier could absolutely make stuff easier for people straight out the gate by turning things into blueprints. So I'm curious to see what that looks like again. Like I say, I just think the more tools you can put in somebody's hands, the better. If you're somebody like me who isn't massively creative, then it's really beneficial to be able to actually take things that other people have done and place them down. You can see it took me absolutely ages to work out what paving they were using here. Slightly embarrassing, actually, just how long this took, but we get there in the end. Again, I think like with anything, the path tools are very much the same as they were before, but it just takes a little while to get used to them. Here you can see the new aviary viewing gallery. Now, obviously they say Jurassic World, but you can very easily go in on the group and remove those Jurassic World logos, so that is something to keep in mind.
To observe our amazing avian reptiles.
So here you can see I'm looking at some of the blueprints because part of the objective is to place the blueprint, and stuff like these Jurassic Park blueprints are really, really handy. I just think anything that gives you kind of additional sort of, I don't know how to describe it really, additional texture almost along your paths, along your access points to your park is going to be really beneficial, and luckily Frontier have put quite a few useful blueprints in the game to begin with, so there are quite a few bits and pieces here that you can grab that are going to be quite helpful. I didn't realise I put these together quite so closely initially, I have to admit. They are very close, but there we go. But you can see there's also some tree blueprints that are quite easy to place down. You've got things like fountains as well. Now, these are, of course, familiar to people who have played the games before, but I think there's something to be said for a lot of what is included here by Frontier. Again, I think this is only something that they're going to build on, and I really welcome that. I think it's going to really mean that parks take on their own distinctive looks over time, and I'm really excited to see what people do when they get their hands on it. I mean, at the time of recording this, a few creators have got it, and there's already a bunch of awesome stuff on the Frontier Workshop that's been made by different people. So I think as we approach the release of the game, there's only going to be more awesome stuff that different people are going to create, which is going to be really awesome to see.
In its own right. Use the arrival point to open the park. Then we can get back to work.
Our client wants more species on site. This is a non-negotiable part of our contract, so do whatever needs to be done to make it happen. Lily, could you lend your guidance?
Oh, of course. Building a new aviary is step one, and it's crucial to get right. The proper environment will keep these animals happy enough to prevent an escape attempt. When the aviary is set up, then we can look into bringing more flying animals on site. The guests will love that, I'm sure.
So you can see we're really beginning to build out our parks now, and this is where I'd say the campaign starts to fall into a familiar format. If you've played the games before, like I say, you'll be familiar with the campaigns, and really how they work is you slowly start to build out parks in different environments. Now, there's a slightly interesting deviation, which we'll look at later on in this piece of gameplay, compared to the previous campaigns, where the previous campaigns were quite linear. It seems this time around you can continue mission threads in one location before you then move to another location, which is quite cool to see. So we've got our new aviary, we're going to place it down. I did annoy myself slightly by placing down the Jurassic World one instead of the Malta one like the other one. At this point, it was too late to swap them, so I just decided to go with it. So we're going to have mismatched aviaries. I'm sure you guys all hate that, and you can feel free to scream at me in the comments below, but we are going with the mismatched aviary aesthetic. So you can see again a big part of, I think, any park once you get into the flow of it is really putting down your guest amenities. They're what is going to push your profit margin up quicker. It's going to mean you can invest in more stuff more quickly, and that is really, really important with this game. You want to be able to invest in stuff as much as you can. Excuse me for a second while I just work out my arm. I have pulled my shoulder recently, so I am not a huge fan of sitting at my desk for long increments currently, but it's necessary for these gameplay videos, and I want to make sure you guys have got plenty of content to enjoy. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking, what else can I do while I'm constructing everything? I think putting down a staff centre is always a good idea. Staff centres are really, really valuable in terms of letting you get the most out of your scientists anyway, so always recommend putting them down if you can. You can see I'm kind of trying to work out where the path is there, and I realise that actually I'm going to be better off placing it here and then connecting it on the pathway to the right hand side. So that is what I decide to do. And then, of course, putting down another power generator as well. This is really my tactic with this campaign, is I could research the power stations, but it's going to take up time and resource. And actually, right now, just placing down sort of like a power generator for every real building that you place down is a really good strategy to just ensure that you have enough power without needing to go away and research those power stations, like I say. Excuse me. If you've seen on my Instagram the fundraising walk I did dressed up as a Jurassic Park worker, then this is the day of that walk. So I've done that walk this morning, and I'm now doing this commentary this afternoon. So never a dull moment in the life of Tom Jurassic. That much is for sure. So we're doing quite well. We've got our new aviary set up and ready to go. Obviously, as you can see, we need to put some power down, but we will do that eventually. We're just trying to make sure that everything is as set up as possible. Now here I was trying to work out where the bunching of people was. I think it's around the restaurants, and the only way you can really address that is researching the larger paths and the main thoroughfares. And I didn't really want to do that at this point in the campaign, so I kind of decided to grin and bear it. I didn't think it would be a massively negative thing for the park. But I did think, and I think you'll see this just here, I did start to think about medium amenities and actually if they would give more people more space to go in and purchase things. So that was something that I did start to do just to really try and consider the space a little bit more. The thing with the campaign is the campaign, like with anything, you kind of have progression, so you have to slowly unlock things to use them. Whereas in something like sandbox mode, you have everything straight away. So I kind of always try and do the bare minimum in the campaign just to get through the actual story itself without necessarily having to spend time unlocking everything. But that can sometimes come back to bite you in the backside if you decide not to unlock enough stuff and then you have an outbreak. It can be a bit dangerous.
Profit. Oh wait, did I say that last one out loud?
Let's deploy the drone.
So you can see here I'm starting to place down the medium amenities, getting rid of my small ones, just to really make the most of that space and make sure I'm maximized. And again, like I was saying in our last playthrough, the ability to see kind of how features influence people is really, really useful. Something I didn't notice when I was actually doing this playthrough is you can set 3 different features in your amenities, which is cool. I didn't realize that, so I'll have to go back in and play with those. You can see again, I'm thinking I can probably fit another medium amenity in here if I get rid of the small one. And again, it isn't going to massively address the bunching problem, but what it is going to do is at least mean we can serve more people in these busy areas. So it helps to push up the profit margin for the park, which is probably the main thing. I mean, we know Cabot Finch is going to be happy with a high profit margin at least, so that's the main thing, really. So again, just making sure I got rid of the last small amenity. And going forward, I'll be using those medium ones more often. It did make me laugh that each time I deleted one, the guest then immediately wanted it back. That's just a funny little feature of the way the evolution system works.
Attention personnel.
Power will be
Please
back soon.
stand by for the returning helicopter.
Generator will be running soon.
%, satisfaction, that is what we want.
Refueling generator.
We've got our generators down. We are going in the right direction with this park. What I'm really trying to do here is take my time. So obviously we want to get more species into the park. We want the Kyajara. But what I'm trying to do is make sure I've got all the infrastructure in place to support that, because that's where I think the parks sometimes go wrong, is it's very easy to just think, oh, I'm going to hatch new dinosaurs. And then if you don't have infrastructure and something goes wrong, it can become a massive challenge to sort of course correct, especially if you get into one of those kind of downward financial spirals that Brad and I have spoken about. This is very much a management game, so you need to keep on top of where that money is coming from. So I'm going to make a critical error here, or I already have made a critical error, which is I put the Kyajara in the same paddock as the Pteranodons, and I wanted to be able to basically port them across, but I was unable to do that, and you'll see that eventually. For some reason in this story mission, they disabled the ability to transport assets between different areas, so it just meant that I had to then rehatch another one and port the Kyajara across into the other aviary afterwards. So you can see here I'm getting them ready for incubation. Again, here, for some reason, I don't have the right mix of scientists, so I have to use all of them. But it's fine, I'm not really prioritizing anything else for the scientists at the moment, so that's not a huge issue. I kind of think, oh, I can put a toilet in place, I can put a shelter in place, and then I know I've got the infrastructure in place for when guests eventually come here. Again, putting another power generator in place as well. And you'll see as we kind of approach the midway point, I realise here pretty quickly that actually I can't port the Kyojara across. I thought maybe I needed to put a drop zone, but that wasn't the case. For whatever reason on this particular story mission, you can't release them via airlift. So I kind of get a bit frustrated. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And then eventually I just decide that I'm going to hatch more of them. So we will get to that point. I think to begin with, I thought, oh, maybe I have to research something to be able to transport these dinosaurs across, which obviously is not the case. But I was very much clutching at straws a little bit to begin with and was kind of like, what do I need to do to sort this out? So for whatever reason, that is just a weird quirk of this mission. There is no other reason that I can think of for you not being able to move them via airlift.
Let's get the drone out there.
Commencing.
How will be back soon.
So I'm kind of at this point just waiting for stuff to kick off. I finally got everything in place to get these guys hatched in the right paddock now, again using all the scientists. I should have probably hired better scientists at this point, but I just could not be bothered. So I decided to just kind of let it play out the way it was. You can see the map itself is absolutely beautiful, lots of water all over the place. You can see the city in the distance to the right, just there, but it is covered in sand, and that is indicative of how the conditions can get on this map. There is a natural degree of weather that occurs throughout this map, so you constantly have to have maintenance teams on standby to really deal with natural erosion.
Their struggles to adapt should be evidence of this, but you reject that fact, and you endanger human life in doing so. Dr. Malcolm was right. Nature must be allowed to take its course without human intervention. If that means a re-extinction of dinosaurs, so be it. We are extinction now, and this is our warning to you. End your work. Dissolve the dinosaur integration network, or this will no longer just be a warning.
So a really interesting inclusion of dinosaur or of extinction now there. I think it's really cool seeing them factored into the story.
The dinosaurs aren't
I just think it's really cool detail.
Our actions don't just affect prehistoric life, but human life also. But I suppose people will see what they want to see. And
I also think the rebirth connection is a bit bittersweet in regard to that, because Extinction now are pretty much right, and I didn't think I'd be saying that, but they are pretty much correct in their attitude towards the dinosaurs, because we leave them to try and adapt, and they go extinct apart from in the equator. So it's interesting.
Let's say mixed results.
Let's keep doing what we're doing. It's not like they'll actually be able to stop us anyway, huh?
Mr. Finch, I was just talking to our client about their ambitions to expand the park.
I think this story is quite interesting because it's clearly weaving the rebirth storyline and also the post-Jurassic World Dominion storyline, and it kind of does a good job of grounding itself in a post-Dominion world where we're still figuring out what's happening with the dinosaurs. But there are little threads here and there which just make you sit up and kind of think, okay, I can see how this
you
positions
that
us on a
Jurassic World,
trajectory that gets us to rebirth. And that's something Brad mentioned. If you've not listened to the podcast we did together, it's something Brad discussed. And I'm really curious to see how they kind of build on that as we go through this campaign. And if it is something that continues to develop and eventually leads into a rebirth DLC, that could be quite interesting.
Fueling generator. Let's put the drone to work.
So here I'm kind of thinking I can squeeze another paddock into this environment and just do something else that's gonna A, interest my guests, but also B, kind of get the park rating up a little bit, just help to move me towards those other objectives longer term. So my plan for this paddock, as you will see as we go through this, is to make it a Dilophosaur paddock. I wanted to hatch Dilophosaurs in the Badlands, but we didn't get that far, so we're going to do it on this map instead.
We don't assume, we postulate, we hypothesize, we test.
Aren't those just very fancy
I kind of
words
initially
for
think,
guess?
oh, okay, we can put another
so I've
aviary here,
studied
which
flying
in retrospect
reptiles
was a
a little
stupid
less.
idea. There is
Not so big
not
on
enough
heights,
space
but
for another aviary
very
here.
much the same. Our flyers will need nests if we're going to encourage their natural wild behaviors.
Transportation complete.
So I realise here that we need to research the flying reptile nesting area, so that's the next thing for our scientists.
Asset in transit.
And we're just going to tidy things up while we do that as well. Oh, I've got my dinosaurs fighting. I didn't even notice that when I was actually playing, but I probably should have done. And you can see there are no customers whatsoever at this sugar theory, so it is just losing me money. So I very quickly go, okay, it's not worth having here yet, and get rid of it. So I want to go in and make sure my dinosaurs are happy. But before I do that, I also want to put down a nesting area for them.
The site is getting more impressive by the day.
So I will
But
say the
increasing
camera for
diversity
the
within our
aviaries is a little bit wonky
would
on
provide
this
both
map.
scientific
It is a
and
bit hard to
entertainment
actually get into them
That
and
should
place
be our
things
next
down, which
target.
can be a bit frustrating. And I know that's something that Brad experienced as well. So I do think across the board the cameras could maybe do with a little bit of refinement in this game. Especially when it comes to blueprints. When you're putting together a blueprint yourself, it would be really useful to be able to go into kind of like a fine view and actually see close up what you're working with. So we're getting our next aviary ready here. We're going to put our Geosternbergia into this aviary eventually. Ignore the shape of this. I know what you're thinking at home. And at this point, I realise, okay, we're running out of money a little bit. We need to maybe maximise everything or just take a couple of minutes to get more money. I also realised that I've not sped it up, so actually speeding it up, everything happens quicker. Your income in the actual park replenishes quicker, and that's really useful for letting you do things a lot more quickly. So I'm kind of looking at the different options for other animals that we can research here. Obviously, I know we want to get the Geosternbergia, but I quickly realised that in order to do that, we actually need to research it. So again, that's kind of a way that Frontier extend the gameplay in these, is you're not just going to have all the dinosaurs at every dig site available. You do need to research some of them, and obviously researching them just means you have to do a bit more work, which kind of elongates the gameplay, if you like.
Generator will be running soon. Tower will be back soon.
Okay, so at this point I'm deciding to place down an aviary, or not an aviary, a hatchery, so I can get some dinosaurs into the park as well. I kind of wondered at first if I needed it, but I thought it's just an easy way of making some additional income, also getting some additional dino appeal for the park. But what I am going to do with this is I'm not going to place it on a fence. I'm going to use it as a remote hatching area that I can then take dinosaurs from and airlift them into the relevant places. So you can see here I spent absolutely ages trying to worm this path around, and then eventually I realised it's not going to happen. I was very determined that it was going to work though.
Getting the generator back up.
I don't quite understand why it doesn't work on the outside of the aviary, but it is what it is. It also made me laugh that it was trying to connect to the generator, but eventually I decided, right, we're going to just move the whole generator, and then there's plenty of space for the path to go all the way through. Now, have I potentially set myself some problems when it comes to placing things like restrooms and emergency shelters? Probably, but that's a problem that we can address in another episode. So we've got our compies. I kind of initially think I'm going to hatch those because they're easy to manage. But then I think, well, we've already got compies. I might come back to it and I might hatch the Dilophosaur. And that is, spoilers, ultimately what I decide to hatch on this map. I also at this point realised that we can get rid of some of the scientists and get better scientists. Brutal, I know. But this did remind me of a feature I forgot, which is you do get the ability to train scientists. So I don't know if there's a benefit to keeping scientists longer term, but you can train them and add to their traits, which is quite nice. So here, I decide we're going to get the Dilophosaur. We're going to hatch it. And we start that process. And then where I did try to build the paddock earlier, I decide again that we're going to put a paddock in here. It just makes a lot of sense. It draws more people down towards where the other pterosaurs are, and is going to, again, add to the overall appeal of the park. So interestingly, although the park is kind of guiding you towards Geosternbergia being the next addition to the park, you can complete 2 out of the 3 objectives here just with hatching a dinosaur. And what this does do, which I wasn't anticipating, is it actually triggers the next part of the campaign, as you'll see when we get there. So if you are trying to speedrun it, you don't necessarily have to hatch the Geosternbergia. The one thing I would say is when you come back to this portion of the park, though, you do still need to finish the story missions and hatch the Geosternbergia. So that's where I say I think going along the game, you're then gonna need to kind of do different missions across different parks and complete all of the missions across the different parks to finish the campaign. Now again here I'm just thinking about putting more generators into the grid. Having more power wherever you can is never a bad idea. You can see there's guest crowding in some areas as well, but it's not too problematic. So I'm kind of feeling quite good with how everything's looking at this point. Put my ranger station in to make sure that the rangers are going to keep an eye on the Dilophosaurs. And what you'll see shortly is I decide to place down another response facility and also another maintenance facility. I kind of thought that this area at the back of the park, behind the sort of aviaries, could be an off-limits area where kind of a lot of the park operations are handled from. So that was sort of what I had in mind. I then started placing down some structures that would allow that, just to kind of give me more operations. And that's the other thing, is I always try and place more sort of response teams, more maintenance teams than I need, because otherwise if you have everything assigned to one, it can take them longer to get stuff done. So sometimes it just makes sense to have it assigned to multiple teams so you get a faster response. And you'll see coming up, I'm very glad that I do this. So I'm just making sure I've got everything covered before I hatch the Dilos. And then I'm happy with that, so I go to the next phase. I want to put some male Dilophosaurus in, purely because I'm quite keen to get some juveniles down the line, because obviously they add more appeal to your parks. And I immediately know with that scientist that I've got a scientist who's burnt out, so I now need to set them to rest so they're going to recuperate. So this is me looking for the staff centre, trying to remember where I placed it, because there's just a heft of buildings, and then I find it and I immediately rest that staff member. I did think I was going to be more brutal and fire them for a minute, but luckily I wasn't. I was a nice guy for a change. Again, just putting additional power down, because I know I've got a lot of resources down here, so it makes sense in my mind to kind of put contingencies in place. Now I know that extinction now is a factor as well. I assume sabotage will be a factor in the game again. So just having additional stations down just means that you are able to ensure that nothing breaks. And here I notice again there's a couple of buildings that are outside of the maintenance sort of roster areas. So I place down the appropriate stations just to make sure that my maintenance dudes are able to look after them and ensure that these buildings don't get damaged. So at this point the weather forecast is changing right as I'm hatching Dilophosaurs. Never a good combination, I'm going to be honest with you. I maybe should have paid more attention to it, but I immediately know that the weather storm is going to be chaotic, so I open all of my shelters just as a precaution. I place another one down just here, just to make sure that everybody's safe. It did say, I think it said it was a hurricane, which might be a new addition for Evo 3, and I wasn't really sure how much damage the hurricane was going to do, so I kind of decided to get everybody inside, and then if it did do a lot of damage, at least I knew I was covered. So I sort of put the emergency shelter down. While I'm doing that, I also put another restroom down, just because you might as well. And then you can see we're already suffering some damage, but our maintenance teams are luckily quite quick to respond to that, so I've done a fairly decent job of automating it, so I don't need to worry about too much. And you can see these guys are agitated in the storm, which I found quite interesting. These guys were agitated as well, but clicking on them I could see that they were missing pasture, so I decided to fix that quickly. And then I knew that they were happy and they would be better after the storm. Now when I look back at these guys, I looked at the environmental factors, and it took me ages to realise that the reason why they weren't happy was because they needed a second fish feeder. So we go through a bit of a journey at this point to try and fit a second one into the paddock. It is a tight paddock. But again, here you can see the camera problems. It's really hard to actually get into the facility and really look at them. So that was the challenge.
Ladies Ladies and gentlemen, the hurricane has now passed. Please resume your normal
This is just me struggling to really get the camera to the level I want it to. Frontier, if you're watching this is something that maybe could be improved with getting cameras into the aviaries on this specific map, this campaign mission. I found that actually going into capture mode was probably the easiest way to go in and really look at things. So you can see me doing this quite often here, because it then just gets me inside. I can swap back to whatever I was doing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it pops you back out, but it's just a useful way of being able to do that. So here again, the combination of the animals being nearby and other things makes it a real challenge. I'm trying to avoid putting deep water across the other side because I don't want to ruin the area. What I didn't realise here at the time was the fact that that's obviously the nest that we put down, so that's why it's not letting me do that. But eventually I just thought, screw it, I'm going to put it over here. They can have another feeder in a separate place, and then at least I know it's covered. So I went back, checked them, they were happy, so it was all sorted. It just definitely took me a little bit longer than it would somebody who is competent at the game. There is a recurring theme there, if you have not noticed. So I begin to get the Dilophosaurs delivered, and I know that I'm going to need to take my time to get the Dilos comfortable. This does cause a little bit of a problem, as you're about to see. We have our first chaotic moment of the campaign. I'm fairly confident the Dilos are going to need water. That's a pretty safe bet, I would say, for any dinosaur. I also know that they're going to need prey. But for whatever reason, I forget to put prey down straight away. So I start to build out their environment based on their environmental needs here. But one thing you'll note is I do not put prey down straight away. And if there is one thing that is going to make a dinosaur annoyed, it is not having food. And as we're going to see, the lack of food very quickly leads to the Dilophosaurs breaking out. Now, what I do find really interesting in this game is when you have your maintenance teams automatically assigned to respond and maintain, it means that often they are able to go and fix the fences before the dinosaurs have actually broken out, which is a really, really cool feature. So what you'll often find is your response teams might actually fix a fence when 2 out of 4 dinosaurs in a paddock have escaped, meaning you literally then get more time to manage everything else. I did not realise I had poison dinosaurs at this point. But here we go, this is the campaign map, so you can see East Asia has opened up, and this now gives us 3 more campaign locations.
Progress. But you know, it's a complex, chaotic world out there, and now that global complexity, that intercontinental chaos, will have another fascinating variable to it: you. What could possibly go wrong?
Certainly nothing that we can't handle, I'm sure. But allow me to give a proper briefing on these incredible opportunities. In Indonesia, there are rumors of disease in local dinosaur populations. We are tasked with developing a facility to monitor and handle any outbreaks. A conservation-minded client in China has asked for our help in creating a spacious sanctuary for prehistoric giants. And there is a theme park in Japan that has fallen to ruin. We will need to put it back in working order and make it the success it was always meant to be. All 3 of these sites are significant, both in the importance of the work and in their benefit to our global reputation. These clients expect a lot of us. We best not disappoint.
So there we go. I was kind of sat here at this moment like, oh my god, I've unlocked some other locations. Now what I've decided to do is stay in Clark County to finish the current objectives. So I didn't realise I have poison dinosaurs. That's something I'm going to need to deal with. But what I wanted to do initially was at least fix the Dilophosaur paddock. So I start to try and put down some more of the environment that they need. me kind of being very ignorant, not realizing that I'm starving the poor things, and also not realizing that they are sick. So I'll need to place a paleo veterinarian unit at some point to deal with that. But that obviously is not something that I can deal with now. Now I start to realise that I've kind of built a paddock that's a bit too small. Although it is enough space for them, it's tricky to contain. And at this point, they're out. They've decided they've had enough. My maintenance team is already there fixing the fence, but I've got 2 dinosaurs that have broken containment. So I very rapidly look for my capture team, give them the task of containing those Dilophosaurs. Mercifully, they do it really quickly, so that's always a positive. And I then decide that I need to fix this paddock to try and get these dinosaurs more comfortable. So obviously I put additional fencing down. You can see there is a Dilophosaur breaking the fence there, but I think, well, I might as well expand this at this point. Then at least I can delete the fence he's attacking, as you can see there. And this just gives me a little bit of additional space to put down a couple more of the things that these animals need. So they need some more wetland. So I know that if I put this down here, they're sorted, and then they need prey as well, and that's the last thing they need. So I kind of put prey down. I know that they've hopefully got everything they want now, and you can see they're happy and thriving. So that is where I decide to leave this episode. We've got our Dilophosaurs being moved back into their paddock. They are happy and thriving now. They don't appear to be poisoned anymore, but we shall see if that is the case when we load back in. But for now, guys, that is pretty much going to call our time at Clark County. We're going to get a expedition for the Geosternbergia underway, so we can get the Geo next episode. We are just going to find where the Geosternbergia is. There we go. And like I say, with that expedition underway, guys, that is going to call it for this episode. So I hope you've enjoyed part 4. Make sure to like, favourite and subscribe. And do come back for additional Jurassic World Evolution 3 content in the not so distant future. See you soon.